We're in our third year of SAMPay. What it's really turned into, as we're finding here, is it's often about the performance of the company. And you could pretty much predict at the beginning of proxy season which companies will have the poor vote results based on their TSR from the prior year. What are you, thinking about what was originally proposed in the Dodd-Frank bill? Now that we're in the third year, what have been some of the unintended consequences around SAMPay? What were they hoping to accomplish, and how do you see the impact it's had on boardrooms, decisions, plan design, and whatnot, some of the unintended consequences through all of this?
If you look at what it's done to the boardroom, it's changed it completely. I think if you look at what it's done to our practices in terms of the work that we do, it's changed it completely. Some for the better in terms of we're spending a lot more time doing different things, but I'll tell you the work isn't terribly rewarding a lot of the time, trying to simply explain why what you're trying to do may not line up directly with what's published by somebody, but is what this company needs to be done. So I think what we're spending lots more time in boardrooms talking with concerns about how is ISS going to react to this? How will Glass Lewis react to it? Or alternatively, trying to figure out how do we pitch the program that we're putting in place to shareholders. Just some of the statistics, and I always get, this time of year I always get confused which year I'm talking about. When I talk about recent votes, there have been 6 failures so far this year, but when we look at last year, I think there was 60 is generally the number that everybody is using. 24% of those failures had passed the year before with 90% or greater. The system is so fouled up for us because if you think about your say on pay, well, what happens at the beginning of the year? What do? You do salary increases. You set your bonus targets and you set performance metrics and the performance grids. You also make all your LTI grants. What's the only other item that's going to control how shareholders are going to vote on say on pay? Well, generally it's now stock price, and you're going to be 10 months later seeing how the stock price finally ends up, and that's part of what's going to determine it. I agree with Rosie that there have been lots of changes taking place in boardrooms trying to tick the boxes of getting rid of pledging, hedging, double triggers, excise tax gross-ups, and different things that irritate shareholders. I'm not sure all of that is great. I'm not sure that a blanket decision that excise tax gross-ups are wrong is the right decision to make. I know there's a lot of money involved, but I think when you bring a brand new CEO in, there's a lot of issues to consider. However, what I'm finding is that when you go and try and explain to a board that you're bringing in a CEO to turn around a troubled company, and if this person, if the ultimate result is within a year or two the company is sold, all of these upfront grants that you're giving them are going to be taxed away to a very large extent because of excise tax gross-ups and excise tax and the additional taxes that come about. So it tends to make some executives step back and say, maybe this isn't a position I should want to be in terms of accepting this. So again, I think we've changed the focus from where we really should be. Do I think that shareholders should have a say in terms of what goes on? Yes, but I think even some shareholders are having challenges at this point. The fact that you're doing a lot of work with institutions right now in terms of trying to guide them tells me that even if they have a lot of sophisticated people, they're struggling with what metrics are, and how do you go from a pass it of 90% in one year to a failure the next? To me, there should be a green or a yellow light in the center saying either we've got a problem, or I don't know what you've got to do, but you've got to do something to make me happier on a going forward basis.
I hear a lot about outreach. What are the boundaries, if there are any, or the things we should be mindful of when we're engaging proactively or even defensively in shareholder consultation, advising, and discussions?
What we've talked to clients about is if you're out doing whether it's shareholder meetings or analyst meetings, getting a couple of slides in on why we do what we do for pay isn't a bad idea. Yep. It tends to show people how everything is kind of tied together is not a bad approach to take.
What are the specifics we could walk away with, best practices, that we could take back in our next comp committee meeting next week? We're all coming up on them pretty quickly. What could we actually walk in and say, we're going to do something different?
What I'd love to see in comp committee meetings a little bit more is put the ISS stuff aside. Leave that till the very, very end, as opposed to that's the opening part of the discussion, which kind of frames where you're going to go the rest of the way. If you actually focused on what's the business plan, what's the strategy, how have our other metrics worked, and what could we get more out of it, and then the last question is, what's ISS going to say about it, I think is okay. But it shouldn't be the thing that starts the discussion, and too often I think it is. It's just a cloud that hangs over everything.